Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Nevada Youth Legislature to order on Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. I'd like to thank everyone in this chamber for being here and welcome everyone to this meeting of the Nevada Youth Legislature on this fine afternoon. I'd like to thank our legislators from the North zooming in here today, and we have everyone here from the South as well. Just to sort of start the meeting, I was unfortunately not able to be there at Carson City, but the last time I was here is when I was elected as chair of this legislative body, and I would just like to thank everyone for entrusting me with your vote in my leadership, and I hope that we can have an amazing year and get some good legislation on the books for the young people of this great state. So before we get started, I'd like to ask the secretary to please call roll.
Youth Legislator Bentham.
Present.
Youth Legislator Buttnogger.
Present.
Youth Legislator Boulware.
Present.
Youth Legislator Craver.
Present.
Youth Legislator Greenstein.
Present.
Youth Legislator Keene.
Present.
Youth Legislator Kington. Youth
Present.
Youth Legislator Krieger.
Present.
Youth Legislator Lara.
Present.
Youth Legislator Makababed.
Present.
Youth Legislator Miller.
Present.
Youth Legislator Moss. Youth Legislator Price.
Present.
Youth Legislator Rogest.
Present.
Youth Legislator Sutton.
Present.
Youth Legislator Thornton.
Present.
Youth Legislator Thurgood. Youth Legislator Walker.
Present.
Youth Legislator Wong. Vice Chair Lyle.
Present.
And Chair Dimison.
Present. Thank you, Ms. Aguayo. At this time, if anyone would like to provide public comment, please remember to identify yourself for the record. To ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, I would like to ask anyone speaking during public comment to keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes and to try to avoid repeating comments that have been made by a previous speaker. Remember that there will also be another period for public comment at the end of this meeting. So anyone that would like to provide public comment, please indicate now. I have no one from the South and no one from the North or via phone call. So it appears that we do not have anyone who is prepared to provide public comment at this time. So we will move on to the next portion of this meeting. Our primary focus for today's meeting is very important. It's to begin the selection process for the bill draft request that we will be presenting to the Nevada State Legislature during the 2023 legislative session. So I want to thank all the youth legislators present here today for the time and attention that you have devoted towards listening to the constituents in your respective districts and the time that you have spent researching for your BDR proposals. I'm very excited to hear what everyone is proposing, as I'm sure everyone else is. So as a housekeeping reminder for when we begin our presentations today, please remember to unmute and identify yourself for the record when speaking and mute yourself when you are done speaking. It's just to prevent feedback from other microphones so that way we can run this meeting smoothly today. I would also like to ask everyone to please turn off your cellular devices or silence them, and to ensure that no other electronic device will also be disturbing us today so we can focus on the matter at hand. Please also keep in note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the legislative website for the public to see. Please also keep in mind that as you deliver your testimony and ask questions of the presenters, that the public will be able to see this. We will now move on to item 4 on our agenda. Our last meeting was held on April 5th of 2022. Yes, copies of the minutes of that meeting have been provided to everyone here, and I will now accept a motion to approve these minutes. Would anyone at this time like to make a motion?
Motion?
Youth Legislator La, you are recognized.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Is there?
second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this motion regarding those minutes?
What you'll learn from me is I jump up to the microphone often. Teaching moment. For the language is, if I would accept a motion, and then as a youth legislator is recognized, motion is a noun. You would accept a motion. When we are engaging in making the motion, we move. So I move that whatever it is you're asking them to do. And then, but then the next person you can say, you ask for a second and say, I move to second the motion. Sounds like a song, doesn't it?
Thank you, Senator Wiener. So just going back to that question, are there any youth legislators who would like to discuss on the motion regarding to the minutes? It seems at this time there will be no discussion on the motion regarding the minutes, so we will vote on this motion now. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please signify by saying yes.
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 Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it seems that this motion pretty much carries unanimously, and the minutes are approved. So congratulations, everyone. We'll now move on to agenda item 5, which is going to be the selection of the 7 bill draft requests that we will move forward from this legislative meeting. At this time, I would like to ask each youth legislator to please give a brief explanation of your BDR proposal. You will have 2 minutes to give a speech on your BDR proposal, and after each presentation, youth legislators will have the opportunity to ask questions to the presenting youth legislator for 3 minutes. A list of BDR proposals was emailed to every youth legislator. We will take each of the BDR proposals in numerical order. While you are listening to each proposal, please consider which ones you would like to see to move forward to our next meeting on October 20th, 2022. When it does come time to vote, each of you will have 3 votes, meaning that you will get to pick your top 3 BDR proposals and suggest that you would like for them to move on. Additionally, each one of you has the option to co-sponsor 1 BDR proposal. So as we get through the course of this meeting, please keep in mind which BDR proposal you feel strongly about, and note that you would like to co-sponsor that one. So before we get started, Tina, will you be keeping time or will I? Thank you. So just before we do begin our speeches, I'd just like to go over a few parliamentary procedures. So I will call each youth legislator in numerical order from the BDR list to speak. I will time you for 2 minutes. So at 1 minute remaining, you'll hear my gavel bang once. At 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining, so meaning 1 minute and 30 seconds has elapsed, you'll hear my gavel bang twice. Oh. And at 10 seconds remaining, you will hear my gavel bang 3 times. I'll allow for a 10-second grace period, and after that, I will continue to bang the gavel until you cannot hear yourself, like this. After that, we'll have an opportunity for youth legislators to ask questions to the presenting youth legislator. And the way that this will work is we'll have all youth legislators who would like to ask a question rise, and we'll allot 30-second time periods for each youth legislator to ask a question. And each youth legislator is not limited to just one of those 30-second time periods. We'll get through this together. So please do not worry. So we'll get started on the content of our BDR proposals. Youth Legislator Bentham, would you like to start by providing a brief explanation of your BDR proposal? Oh, and then just keep in mind to go to the witness table when making your presentation.
Good afternoon, legislators. There is a mental health crisis in our country, and specifically in our great state of Nevada, by the simple fact that so many of us have bill proposals that address student mental health in some form or fashion should tell us something. According to the CDC, not getting enough sleep is associated with several health risks, including being overweight, drinking alcohol, smoking tobacco, using drugs, and poor academic performance. The American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, has declared teen sleep deprivation a public health issue. The AAP and the CDC recommend children ages 13 to 18 to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. Most of us, 73% of high schoolers and 58% of middle schoolers, get less than that. Studies show that later school start times equate to more sleep time, and that more sleep improves attendance, graduation rates, academic performance, reduces sport injuries, and decreases drowsy driving incidents. Even though all the experts point to sleep as a key factor in students' health short-term and even later in life, the average school start time in Nevada is 7:45 a.m. With this bill, we have a chance to initiate changes that will positively impact our friends, brothers, and sisters for generations to come. Doing so will align school schedules with the biological sleep rhythms of adolescents whose sleep cycles begin to shift up to 2 hours later at the start of puberty. It is proven through all of these sources and more that when a person hits puberty, their circadian rhythm changes. As a result of the change in circadian rhythm, most teens find themselves getting tired at a later time, around 11 p.m. Even 30 extra minutes of sleep per night can have major benefits in staving off long-term health issues, both mental and physical. This bill will mimic what California has already passed into law. Colleagues, we have an opportunity to be a leader in our state when it comes to setting the standard for quality education. Let's take the first step by proposing and passing this bill that would mandate school start times for high school students to no earlier than 8:30 a.m. and for middle school students no earlier than 8 a.m. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Bentham. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please rise. Youth Legislator Lyle, you are recognized for a time of 30 seconds. And just for parliamentary procedure, for the questioning period, I'll bang the gavel once at 10 seconds remaining, and then we'll end that questioning period right at 30 seconds. Youth Legislator Lyle, you are recognized.
Hi, Youth Legislator. I really love your idea. How would this work out with the busing system that a lot of us rely on?
Youth Legislator Bentham, for the record, thank you so much. So for the busing schedule, as it is, it goes high school to middle school to elementary. That's how the busing schedule works. But as I was mentioning earlier, their circadian rhythm changes when teens hit puberty. So what we would be doing is like rescheduling the busing schedule. So this would be elementary students going first, then middle school, then high school. And so that's how that would work. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle, for that question. Any other youth legislators with questions at this time, please rise and make yourself noted. Seeing that we do not have any questions left for Youth Legislator Bentham, Youth Legislator Bentham, you are dismissed from the witnesses table. Just as a note, because we are discussing our bill draft requests, I would please implore each youth legislator to try to get some questions in on each bill draft proposal. This is the best opportune time for us to discuss the content of each proposal, so please make sure to be asking questions. We will now be moving on to bill draft proposal number.
Mr. Chair, again, teaching moment, you wouldn't have them rise, you can have them raise their hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wiener. Okay. Now we'll be moving on to BDR Proposal Number 2, submitted by Youth Legislator Butnagar. Youth Legislator Butnagar, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, youth legislators. My idea for the BDR is for online and digital textbooks to be updated in each school district. I'm advocating for this because since the global pandemic, a lot of things have changed, not just in the U.S., but in the whole world. And I believe that as students transition into the new school year every year, there should be more information for them to know of, especially in classes like health, social studies/history. Online textbooks can be easily amended and re-downloaded back to students and teachers, so the cost of it would be less since the cost of it would be less. And since technology has been on the rise these days in schools, and schools providing Chromebooks to students, it would be much easier to access as well. What I intend to accomplish with my proposal is to improve students' education, as their education matters and would be incredibly useful for students to get exposure and knowledge to what's happening to our world and country. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Butnagar. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. We'll just split the time. So we'll start with Youth Legislator Craver. You'll have 1 minute to ask questions.
I don't know about your high school, but in my high school, a majority, and I mean about 95% of the classes don't require textbooks of any sort. So do you think it would be really a good way to spend our money in this one bill that we're allowed to have?
Thank you. Thank you. I do know that a lot of the schools, like my high school, do use online textbooks or textbooks in general, but I do understand your point, and I will take that into consideration.
Just as a point of order, if youth legislators, when asking questions, if you do not use your full time period, just be sure to yield your time to the chair. So we will move on to Youth Legislator Bentham. You have the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. Youth Legislator Bhatnagar, I wanted to ask you, what would you want schools to have, when would you want schools to meet this requirement for updated online textbooks? Is there a certain date?
Well, thank you for this question, Youth Legislator Bentham. As I said before, each school year, everything is going super fast. Time isn't slowing down. So I would like for this to be in place, I'd say probably 2024 or some time period which is closer, as this could factor more students' education. Thank you.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
The chair will accept that time. At this time, We will now be moving on
Chair,
to
Chair,
BDR.
can you please stop for a second? There are people up here in the north who have questions. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Okay, sorry. I did not see your hand raised, Youth Legislator Thornton, but yes, you do have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. For the record, Youth Legislator Thornton, the question that I have is, have you spoken to any of the school districts about this, and how do they feel?
Thank you for this question. I actually have not talked to any schools about this issue.
Thank you. One more question, Youth Legislator Thornton, for the record. Do you know what the potential cost of these textbooks could be to each of the school districts?
Thank you for the question. I'm not fully sure of the cost. I will take that into consideration and look that up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you. The chair will absorb that time. I believe we do have one more question from the north. Youth Legislator Seddon, you are recognized for the remaining 45 seconds. I apologize. Youth Legislator Greenstein.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the speech, Youth Legislator Botnager. I was wondering if you could clarify what the benefits are of a physical versus a digital textbook and vice versa, or rather what the benefits are of a digital textbook over a physical textbook.
Thank you for this question. So some benefits would be for physical textbooks, say if we were to update physical textbooks, the cost would be significantly high. However, for online textbooks, as I've mentioned before, can be easily amended and then re-downloaded back to the teachers and students. So I don't know the exact or approximate cost, but I do know that it will be significantly less rather than physical textbooks. And as I've seen in many high schools and my high schools with the textbooks, the physical textbooks that we have, they have always been destroyed and pages ripped out and drawings.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Butnager. Your time has elapsed. And thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein. We will now be moving on to BDR Proposal Number 3, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Boulware. Youth Legislator Boulware, you are recognized for 3 minutes. I apologize, 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I am Youth Legislator Boulware, representing Senate District Number 2. I am here to present my BDR regarding the addition of a student non-voting member to each school board of trustees. Nevada law already provides a student non-voting member for the State Board of Education. I want to use the language from this statute and add it to the existing statute regarding school boards in Nevada. I am proposing this BDR for at least 3 reasons. First, it's about fairness. There are hundreds of decisions being made by school boards in Nevada that affect the daily lives and futures of students in Nevada. In a society and democracy based on the principle of popular representation, it is only fair and just that students who are being impacted by the many decisions of the school boards of Nevada have some input in these decisions. Secondly, and more importantly, a student representative who is currently attending school in a particular district will be able to provide a perspective that no other school board member can provide. Students understand the difference between an education policy in theory and in practice. Students know how a well-meaning policy can often fail in implementation. Third, and perhaps the most significant impact of this proposal, is I would create a permanent student presence and input on school boards rather than having student input being limited to just a few topics. We as students should not be limited to just public comment or presenting a few bills and policies here and there. We should be able to participate in all and every decision being made about our lives and not just some. Students need a permanent seat at the table where decisions are being made about their lives and about their futures. Adults and students in school districts frequently ask the students to take responsibility. Well, this is not just us accepting responsibility, but us respectfully demanding access. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Bulwer. Any youth legislators with a question, please raise your hand at this time. So I just want to confirm from the north, we have Youth Legislator Thornton and Youth Legislator Krieger asking questions from the north. Just because for me, the screen is a little far, so I do apologize. But we also do have from the south, Youth Legislator Lara and Price. Okay, so we'll start with Youth Legislator Krieger, and then Lara, then Price, then Thornton. Each of you will have 45 seconds. So Youth Legislator Krieger, you are recognized.
Hello, this is Youth Legislator Krieger speaking, and my question was about whether or not these representatives are chosen as one representative per school or per district. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for the question, Youth Legislator Bulwer. For the record, there would be a student member for each school, each district. So for every district, there would be a separate representative. Thank you.
The chair will absorb the remaining time. Youth Legislator Lara, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Youth Legislator Lara, for the record. I want to know how you would elect these representatives. What qualities would they need? Academic achievements, extracurriculars, etc.
Thank you for your question, Youth Legislator Bulwer. For the record, so they would be selected the same way or similar to the way that Nevada Board of Education selects their non-voting student members. So the Nevada Association of Student Councils would put together a list of nominations, and I haven't, looked into if that would require certain academic achievements or other extracurriculars or things like that. But the nominations would then be sent to the superintendent, and it would be up to the superintendent to decide who they want to have as their student.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Bulwer. Youth Legislator Price, you are recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Youth Legislator Price for the record. My question to you is, how long should a student serve on this board?
Thank you for your question, Youth Legislator Bulwer. For the record, I think that a student should be student representative for a year because it's still important for them to fulfill their duties as a student, and I don't want the position to be too demanding. So it would be for a year, and then they would get credit for a year, school credit. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair will absorb the remaining time. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Youth Legislator Thornton, for the record, I definitely like this idea. I also sit on a school committee, and I was wondering if these people who will be representatives, will they be from high schools or will they be from middle schools? Do you have an age range?
Thank you for your question, Youth Legislator Bulwer. For the record, it would be from high schools. I think preferably juniors and seniors because they have more high school experience, but just high school.
Youth Legislator Thornton, for the record, thank you for that. It's definitely important for students to have a voice. I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Thank you, Youth Legislator. Thank you, Youth Legislators, for those questions. Because our 3-minute time period has elapsed for questioning, We'll be moving on to the next BDR proposal. I apologize about that, Youth Legislator Ragas, but you'll have priority on the privilege. Yeah, you're excused. So we'll now be moving on to BDR Proposal Number 4, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Craver. Youth Legislator Craver, you are recognized for a 2-minute speech.
Good afternoon, my fellow legislators, Senator Wiener, and all of the other members in attendance. I am Youth Legislator Emily Craver, representing District 18 and BDR 4. I stand before you today imploring you to review my bill, what it stands for, and consider voting for it later today. Let's start with the basics. The people in this room are not people who know the fundamentals of the juvenile detention centers across the state of Nevada. I am standing here before you in an attempt to educate you on our systems and how we can better the lives of children after the fact. There are 3 main detention centers across Nevada: Summit View Youth Center located in Las Vegas, Caliente Youth Center located in Caliente, and the Nevada Youth Training Center located in Elko. These programs would be directly linked to CSN, WNC, and Truckee CC respectively. The premise of this program is simple: to send deserving kids that are in juvenile detention centers to the community colleges directly linked to their location. These kids would have to follow certain guidelines to be able to fully qualify for the program, and these guidelines are listed as the following. A, 12 hours of optional and extra community service before the beginning of the program and each semester after. B, to pass the high school courses offered to you. C, to pass a GED. The GED is a college readiness test that tests a student college preparedness level. If a student in juvenile detention takes this test and wants to be entered into the program, they must get at least a 170 on every section. All of the 3 points of acceptance for this program ensures that only the individuals that actually want to better their lives are accepted. This all but guarantees that the money put forth to this program does not go to waste. 40% of people across the U.S. that age out of the juvenile detention center system go to state prison by the age of 25. And I think it is our duty to help the people who need it most. And these are those people. Thank you for taking the time to listen and strongly consider the bill I have presented before you today. Keep in mind it will greatly impact these people in the centers around Nevada. And I believe these youths deserve it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Craver. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please please raise your hand. From the north, just to confirm, I see Youth Legislator Thornton and Youth Legislator Greenstein with questions from the north. If someone could verify that. Okay. Do we have any youth legislators from the south with questions? I see Youth Legislator Bentham. So based on recency, we'll go to Youth Legislator Bentham first, then Youth Legislator Greenstein, then Youth Legislator Thornton. All of you will have 1 minute to ask questions.
Thank you, Chair. Youth Legislator Bentham for the record. So I want to ask, if the juveniles, they pass their test and they get the 170, would they go to the physical college campus?
Yes, that's the plan, that they would attend the community college in person to the community college that is respective towards the juvenile center that they are currently residing in.
Thank you. I yield my time to the Chair.
The Chair will absorb the remaining time from Youth Legislator Bentham. Youth Legislator Greenstein, you are recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Youth Legislator Craver, for the bill proposal. I was wondering if you're aware of any other states that have had similar programs, and if so, what the results of those programs were.
Yes, actually, California has recently passed a bill of similar qualities to it, and I've been in contact with that senator who actually passed that bill, and I've talked to him, and he has seen really positive changes in these lives. They go on to do better things. They go on to have better careers, and he's willing to come in the next time and talk to us if my bill gets passed into the top 7. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time.
The Chair will absorb the remaining time. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. Youth Legislator Thornton for the record. Have you spoken to any of the detention centers yet to see if they think this program is viable?
I've called the one in Las Vegas called the Summit View Youth Center, and they believe that it would be really impactful on the youths here in the Las Vegas Center, and they think it would be really beneficial to the future of these kids.
Thank you. Youth Legislator Thornton, for the record, one more question. Where would you get this money from?
Actually, in your packets, I have colorful little slides, and it says that only $50,000 to $75,000 would be allocated for this program, which, upon looking at the other BDR proposals, is really inexpensive compared to a lot of the other proposed bills.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton, for the record. I see that here. That's a nice couple slides that you get for us. Thank you. But where would the money come from?
I think it should come from just certain aspects of our state's budget, such as certain traffic sections of our budget. I feel like are really overpaid.
I apologize, Youth Legislator Thornton, but your time has elapsed. Okay. We will now be moving on to BDR Proposal Number 5.
Intermission for teaching moment. Mr. Chair, you don't need to reference that you will absorb the remaining time. That doesn't occur, that language. Also, you all have such limited time to present. Once you identify yourself, you don't need to keep re-identifying yourself every time you answer a question. Also, because Maria will know because you've been identified. When someone is recognized to ask a question, Mr. Chair, you can say the chair recognizes Youth Legislator Kington, and then he doesn't then have to say Youth Legislator Kington and then ask the question. And each time we don't have to keep re-identifying once because we know the conversation is going on. Maria can follow that. It's when we have more than and they haven't been identified. Also, it's lovely to say thank you for your question. However, it's interesting when you thank somebody for the question, as soon as you don't thank somebody, they think something's wrong with their question because they didn't get thanked. So I would recommend that you identify yourself and you respond to the question because you have so little time that you're using up a lot of time with very nice caveats of appreciation, except they're eating up your time. Also, earlier I had said, Mr. Chair, when you ask for a motion and then one of the youth legislators, I move, because you say I would entertain a motion, and then you recognize the youth legislator, I move, and then I would accept a second. You don't have to say I move to second. They can just say second. You identify youth legislator, say second. That keeps it moving along. Is that all right, Mr. Killian? Yep.
Asher
Anyway.
Killian for the record. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I believe we had a point of inquiry from Youth Legislator Makababad before we move on.
I'd like to ask for a person.
Yes, you're excused. So we will now be moving. We will now be moving on to BDR Proposal Number 5, which is my BDR proposal. So at this time, I will hand over the parliamentary procedure to Vice Chair Lyle while I am testifying. Vice Chair Lyle, are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Youth Legislator, you have the floor.
Thank you. Youth Legislator Dimison for the record. The fight for modernized sexual education will not stop or begin in this chamber. In 2017, the Nevada Assembly renewed a fight to create queer, inclusive, and wide-reaching sexual education for Nevadan students. AB 295 would have modernized the sexual education curriculum and changed our system from opt-in to opt-out. AB 348 specifically ensured culturally responsive sexual education to include people of color and queer students, in addition to changing our system from opt-in to opt-out. Both bills died in legislature. I'm honored to present this BDR in front of all of you, so let's discuss the background behind this BDR. Research from the Global Journal of Health Sciences found that Clark County, Nevada had a 52% increase in new HIV infections among young people aged 13 to 24, with 83% of the new diagnoses being in people of the queer community. HIV transmission, however, is not the only issue that runs rampant among Nevadan students. The United Health Foundation in 2019 found that Nevada had 19 births per 1,000 females between the ages of 19 to 15, which is 17% higher than the national average. Teen pregnancy is still an issue in the state of Nevada, but we have a solution. Sexual education, but most importantly, comprehensive sexual education that not only focuses on abstinence, but more so prevention measures that have been proven to work scientifically, encourages students to make smart decisions to prevent themselves from putting themselves in a socioeconomic disadvantage. Changing our current system from opt-in to opt-out would ensure that a wider range of students have access to sexual education curriculum, but that also we can include people of all gender sexualities and identities on that spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. All those with questions, please raise your hands. All right, it looks like we have about 3, so we will give everyone a minute to speak. That's first going. Everyone in the north, could you please raise your hand again? All right, that first question is going to go to Youth Legislator Greenstein.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if you have any statistics or if you're aware of the frequency, maybe anecdotally, about in the current system, how frequently people opt in versus how frequently parents don't opt at all.
Yeah, so I'm not sure of any specific numbers as to the disparities between people who opt in versus opt out, but I do know that a few school districts around the nation, including those in California, have adopted opt-out systems, and they've shown to have higher rates of students who do attend sexual education curriculum. So the education aspect definitely does increase when we change the system structurally from opt-in to opt-out.
Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
Youth Legislator Kington, and then if everyone could raise their hand if they had a question one more time. Perfect. Youth Legislator Kington, and then Laura.
So you said that 2 similar bills had failed when they went to be passed. Do you feel like we would have a good chance of passing this bill?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the most important things that we have as an advantage in this scenario is that as young people, when it's us leading the charge on issues like sexual education, because instead of having a room full of adults make decisions about policies that affect students, when you have the students say something about it, it's very hard to say no to them. So I think as a body here, we definitely do have the potential to make some transformative change, and sexual education is definitely something that young people in the state of Nevada need, and they need it updated.
I yield my time to the chair.
I would wanted to ask, how would the conflict between parents and religious affairs that some families might have, how would you combat that in the bill?
Yeah. So the thing is that with this, no student is being mandated to take sexual education courses. So families who feel extremely strongly about our hopefully updated sexual education curriculum from this piece of legislation will still have the ability to opt out. All they would have to do is give the school a signed slip of paper or somehow provide their consent to removing their student out of the sexual education curricula, and they would be able to respect their religious values while also allowing students to receive sexual education curriculum at a higher rate.
Thank you, and I did just want to double check over in the north, were there any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to pass Youth Legislator Bentham.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask, what would be the difference between the course you are proposing and a regular health class?
Yeah. So in the way that legislative funding works from the U.S. government, Congress has approved like $85 million per year of funding to sexual education curriculum, but it can only teach that contraceptives have a failure rate. And so if we update our new sort of methods as to teaching the sexual education curriculum, we allow students to know that abstinence is not the only prevention method, but it also lets queer students who haven't been taught about queer sexual education that there is education.
That is the end of the time. Thank you. I'm going to pass the chair back to Chair Dimison.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle. We'll now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 6, which was presented by Youth Legislator Greenstein. You are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
May I, before you start, Youth Legislator Greenstein, just a procedural thing for record keeping. In recognizing if you have multiple questions, or Youth Legislators questioning or wanting to ask, you might say, the chair will recognize this, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as one is finished, please recognize them one at a time, because our secretary isn't watching, she's listening. So she needs to be able to go to the recording and know who was identified. For example, Youth Legislator Laura, I appreciate that you said the order, but when he came up, it was a nod, and our secretary wouldn't know that he was the one speaking. So just for clarity for the record, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wiener. Youth Legislator Greenstein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Youth Legislator Greenstein for the record. While I can't speak for everyone here today, I would imagine that the majority of us are able to speak to our parents whenever we want, even if, sometimes we'd rather not. However, for the 60,000 Nevada children who have an incarcerated parents, this can often be a struggle. Because it's often hard to visit a parent in prison, that makes phone calls the only real option for children who desire to keep in touch with their parents. Unfortunately, though, this isn't cheap at all. The state has a contract with the prison phone company that imposes extra fees on top of a normal phone bill. So, for example, for a child to talk to their incarcerated parent for just 30 minutes each week, which I would emphasize is not a lot when you think about it, families would have to pay more than $170 per year to the state's prison phone company. That's a lot of money, especially when you consider that justice-impacted families often already are coming from low-income backgrounds. This steep cost can stand in the way of parent-child contact, which research shows as having a slew of positive effects for both the incarcerated parent and the child themselves. Therefore, my bill proposes to create a pilot program for 1 year for 1,000 children to receive free weekly 30-minute phone calls to their parents in Nevada prisons. The Nevada Department of Corrections would apply for federal and private grants and gifts, so there would be no cost to Nevada taxpayers to implement this policy. And at the end of the proposal, the legislature could evaluate whether it wanted to make the necessary appropriations to make a more permanent program. I, for one, can't imagine not being able to speak to my parents, which makes me realize how difficult it must be for the 8% of Nevada children with a parent behind bars. Please join me in supporting this proposal, which would help to create a fairer, more equitable, and more affordable criminal justice system for children who have done nothing wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. Am I able to see the youth legislators from the north? Okay. Just to confirm, from the north, Youth Legislator Krieger, I believe you have a question. And then
Yes.
from the south, I see Rogist, Makababad, Miller, and Lyle. So 3 minutes divided by 5. I think we'll just say around 45 seconds for youth legislator. No, we'll do 35 seconds. 35 seconds for youth legislator. So we will go to youth legislator August. You have 35 seconds.
And Mr. Chair, for clarification, as you've been giving amounts of time, and this doesn't count on the clock, you've been giving, so it's not ticking away on your time. As you're framing it to say, because you just did the math, and you're giving that allocation to the youth legislator asking the question, remember that the youth legislator also has to answer the question in the time that so you may say we'll break it in, and this is how much we'll have to respond to the question rather than allocating that to the specific youth legislator, because there's a response that's calculated in that as well.
Just for, I guess, keeping the meeting going. So since we have like 5 youth legislators who would like to ask a question during this period, would we want to still keep it a 3-minute questioning period, or would we be able to just have some youth legislators
We
have
are
priority?
attempting to keep this within a time frame. So often what can happen when there are so many questions, you can take the first 3 that raised their hands, and sometimes you can have committee members submit questions that would be resolved during a work session. But it's up to the chair. If we need to go longer, we'll hope to make it up somewhere else. We don't want to freeze youth legislators out, but I would say shorten it up. This is a great opportunity to learn how to ask a question very briefly and concisely, to be articulate in a shorter period of time for questioner and answerer.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Wiener. So with that in mind, what we will do, so we will go to Youth Legislator Ragas first, then we'll go to Youth Legislator Makababad, then Youth Legislator Miller. You will all have 1 minute each. Youth Legislators Krieger and Lyle, you'll have priority for the next time that you do speak. So Youth Legislator Ragas, you're recognized for 1 minute.
Does this exist in other states?
Youth Legislator Greenstein, for the record, I do think it's important to note that this has been done in other states. Connecticut in 2019 made all calls free, regardless of who was giving the call or who was receiving the call. And a similar proposal is currently being implemented in New York State. This proposal is more focused than that. This is just for children of incarcerated Nevadans, because there's a significant body of research that suggests that of all the people you could give free calls to, it's often most beneficial if they're the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Ragas. We'll now be moving on to Youth Legislator Makababad. You have the floor.
You mentioned that the phone calls are expensive, so can you please expand on how this proposal will have no cost?
So how this proposal would be funded is there was a federal law from 2007 called the Second Chance Act, which was meant to provide funding to help incarcerated families. And that set up a number of grants, often administered by the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services federally, that provide funding for programs that would help families of incarcerated people. And I would note that Nevada has received funding from these grants before, $1 million in 2016. So there's precedent for our state being awarded these grants. And similarly, if there were other private grant opportunities or private gift opportunities, this bill instructs the Nevada Department of Corrections to apply for those. And if they were unsuccessful.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein and Makababad. Your time has elapsed. We'll now be moving on to Youth Legislator Miller. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Youth Legislator Miller, for the record. I was wondering if you had an approximation of the number of prisoners who have kids in the Nevada prison system.
I'm not aware specifically of the number of prisoners who have children in the Nevada prison system, There are 60,000 children in Nevada who have at least one parent incarcerated, which is roughly 8% of the youth of our state. But I can follow up with you individually within the next few days with a more concrete statistic about that.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
All right. Thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein and Youth Legislator Miller. We will now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 7, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Keene. Youth Legislator Keene, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
All right, Youth Legislator Keene here. So my bill, which is basically just add an easier access to water, may not really sound like it's impactful to many of the other schools around here, especially the more wealthier ones. But coming from experience in, you know, a less fortunate school, you know, that I attend, I think this would actually really be impactful in, you know, really help the students in need. So, right now at my school, and especially, I visited many Clark, El Dorado. I visited many schools from athletic perspectives. All of them have pretty, you know, lackluster access to water, especially since my school right now used to sell waters for 50 cents from teachers, and the school board actually, you know, they nullified that, and now you have to buy waters for $1. Water is just a basic human right, and it just, right now, it does not seem like a very viable and accessible thing to students. It's super easy to implement as well. The existing water foundations and pipes, all you do is construct the new water refilling stations over them. I think this is super feasible, and I don't think it would take that much time or take that much effort, and just overall give better access to a basic human right, you know, to these students. So, yeah. I do think that the price of this could be, you know, it could be a little pricey because I'm asking for water refilling stations rather than water fountains. But I think that if we go for the better alternative here, they will last longer and provide a better structure for our students. So that's what I think. And yeah, this may not sound like a big deal to many schools that already have this implemented. Like I said, just the schools that are less fortunate, you know, coming from experience, I think, you know, this would help us out. Yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say, so yeah.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Keene. All youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the South, I have Laura, Bentham, Craver. From the North, I see Youth Legislator Thornton. So, based off of recency, we'll go with Carver first. Carver. I apologize. Youth Legislator Craver first. And then just based on precedence, we will go to Youth Legislator Thornton. And then it'll go to Youth Legislator Lara. So all three of you will have 1 minute to speak. Youth Legislator Craver, you have the floor.
So according to your official BDR proposal, it says you want to implement one for every 150 students, but in at least the Clark County School District, a high school is averaged to have 1,400, which would equate to about 10 extra water refilling stations per school. Do you not think that's excessive, or would we reduce that that number?
Hi, Dylan here. So I think that this is pretty much determined by the size of the campus as well as the body. I think this could literally just be dependent on either school. I mostly put that down just to have a reason to say it. You know, I can't just say we have to add water stations. You know, I need to implement a system in order to put them in. So I just said 150. That could be changed, you know, depending on what needs to be done. But yeah.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Craver. We'll now be moving on to Youth Legislator Thornton. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, and I like this idea, I was wondering if you know of any grants or where this money will come from to be able to fund these water filling stations.
I really only know this from my school, but a lot of our sports and activities do provide a lot of money from fundraisers like selling food during lunch and stuff like that. And a lot of that money does go into bettering our campus. So I think if I did more research on it for the other schools, I'm sure there's probably something. But for my school at the moment, yeah, there is a little bit of money that could be raised from the fundraisers already in place. So, yeah.
Thank you. I yield my time back to the Chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Youth Legislator Lara, you are recognized.
With the experience of water shortages here in Nevada, do you think that adding more water refilling stations would be a good alternative?
Yeah, Dylan here. Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, we still need water in. We can always get it from like Utah or Colorado. So I think that we just still need it.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lara. We do have some time left. So Youth Legislator Bentham, you had a question. Okay, you're recognized for the remaining 40 seconds.
Thank you. Youth Legislator Keene, I wanted to ask, I know you said it was a little pricey, but do you have like a specific estimate of how much this would cost the state originally?
All right, so yeah, I Googled this. It was like $400, maybe like $300 for each station. And like I said, it's pretty much interchangeable. So, I mean, yeah, you could just put as many as we need, but I just think that any access to this at all would be helpful. So, yeah.
Thank you. I yield my time to the Chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Bentham. We will now be moving on to the next BDR proposal, which is Bdr Proposal Number 8, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Kington. Youth Legislator Kington, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
My bill would require any aspiring therapist to provide 100 supervised hours of therapy to students in high school. I purposely chose 100 hours because it is unethical for therapy to be cut short simply because the therapist want to attain the minimum requirements of hours. This bill might appear to create more work for therapists, but it gives the therapist an opportunity to work with clients that they would not work with otherwise. Therapists are also would be encouraged to get out into their community. This bill would require no funding. It is simply a requirement for therapists to be licensed. This bill would take some load off counselors, allowing them to have time to counsel some youth and perform their other duties. Rural students are particularly starved when it comes to healthcare. Many can't drive to services, and even if they could, there's no way they could pay for them. This bill would provide therapy for youth that desperately need it. So I urge you, please vote for my bill.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Kington. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. Okay, just confirming from the north, I see Thornton. From the south, I see Macababad, Walker. Youth Legislator Thurgood and Bentham. All right. So we will go to Youth Legislator Walker first, then we will go to Youth Legislator Thurgood, then Macababad, and then Thornton. Youth Legislator Bentham, you'll have priority on the next question. So Youth Legislator Walker, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you. So in the language of the BDR, it says that aspiring therapists would provide this therapy virtually, do you think it'd be more beneficial if the therapy was in person so they could make more personal connections to the youth that they're serving?
Thank you for the question. Youth Legislator Kington, for the record. I do feel like it would be maybe more beneficial, but not as feasible. I feel like it's more feasible for it to be virtual.
I yield my time.
Thank you. Youth Legislator Thurgood, you are recognized.
Youth Legislator Thurgood, for the record. So in the language you used, are we to operate under the assumption that when you say therapist, you mean specifically child therapist or every form of mental health therapy?
Thank you for the question, Youth Legislator Kington. So with this bill, it's going to be it's broad and encompassing anyone trying to be licensed as a therapist, whether that is child therapist or marriage and family therapist, or any other form of therapist.
Youth Legislator Thurgood, for the record, do you think that for like criminal therapists, that this would be beneficial for them specifically?
Youth Legislator Kington, for the record, I honestly feel that more training is always better. And so I do feel like this could benefit criminal therapists in their future pursuits.
Thank you for your time. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thurgood. Your time has elapsed. Youth Legislator Makababad, you're recognized for 45 seconds.
How effective do you think more hours will be as opposed to reform or just a change to training?
I think, I suppose that this would benefit therapists, but more than that, it's going to benefit the youth in Nevada, and that's the main purpose of this bill.
I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Makababad. Youth Legislator Thornton, you're recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. I definitely like this idea, Youth Legislator Kington. I do have one question for you, though. Do you know of the other requirements for therapists in Nevada?
Do you mean hour requirements?
Yes.
Like for how many hours? Okay. So it's around, I think, 3,000 hours for a therapist's supervised hours for them to become a licensed therapist. So.
Do you feel that this is an hour requirement that would add to that load, or that would just be an easy requirement for them?
Well, thank you for the question. It would, I suppose, add to the load, but I really honestly believe that the benefits are going to outweigh the cons.
I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Your time has elapsed. We will now be moving on to the next Bdr proposal, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Krieger. This is Bdr Proposal Number 9. Youth Legislator Krieger, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for the opportunity to talk about my bill today. As many of you already know, the state of Nevada is facing a critical school counselor shortage. With the lasting effects of the COVID-19 crisis continuing to impact the mental health of Nevada's youth in all districts, it's time to prioritize mental health services from schools. According to a recent study published by the National Association for College Admission Counseling, Nevada's estimated student-to-counselor ratio is 500 to 1. This unsettling statistic is twice what the ASCA recommends as a healthy ratio. This shortage is likely caused by 2 factors: low pay and a lack of regulation for counselor ratios. Public service workers studying to become mental health professionals in schools are discouraged by the overwhelming numbers of students they are assigned to counsel and by the extremely low compensation they receive for their work. The median annual salary for school counselors in Nevada is $63,000, while the statewide average for cost of living estimates around $72,000. This pay discrepancy, combined with the stress of working with unrealistically large numbers of students, deters people from pursuing careers in schools. My bill addresses these issues by establishing a minimum counselor-to-student ratio and offering an annual 20% bonus for counselors who join a school contractually for at least 3 years. I'd also like to reduce the required 600 hours of practicum to 500 to get more counselors into school quickly. While these changes require the reallocation of funds at the discretion of the Nevada Board of Education, it is paramount that we begin reconsidering how we approach school counseling as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Krieger. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the South, I see Craver and Lyle. Do we have any questions from the North? I see Thornton and Greenstein. Right. We will go to Youth Legislator Lyle first, then Youth Legislator Craver, then Greenstein, then Thornton. Youth Legislator Lyle, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
This is Youth Legislator Lyle for the record. I was wondering what the estimated cost is for this proposed bill, especially because it will be over 3 years contractually.
At the moment, I'm unsure about estimated costs since I'm still working on researching the amount of school populations for all Nevada high schools. But at the moment, I'm planning on reaching out to the Nevada Board of Education for an estimate in addition to their ideas on how we could allocate these funds. I'd be happy to follow up with you individually if you'd like as well.
The chair may absorb the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle. Youth Legislator Craver, you are recognized.
So within your speech, you mentioned that you want to cut the required hours from 3,000 to 500. Don't you think that would cause more harm than good because you're rushing this this practice?
So I believe for school counselors, at least from the laws that I read, the required hours of practicum are 600, and that's specifically for working with elementary school students. If my information is correct, I think we should definitely amend cutting down to 500, but I believe that this temporary shortage of hours is effectively going to help us get more counselors into school, and we can consider re-extending it to 600 after we deal with the counselor shortage first.
I yield my time to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Krieger. Youth Legislator Greenstein, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. The bill outlines bonuses for counselors who are retained for 3 years. I was wondering if you have any maybe statistics or anecdotes about what the rate of retention for counselors in Nevada schools is.
I currently, unfortunately, don't have any statistics in terms of retention rates, but what the bonus would do, it would seek to encourage more people to join schools, so even though turnover rates might not necessarily be as a concern, it's another additional factor that makes people more inclined to join schools.
I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. I definitely like your idea and how you have been presenting it. My question to you is, do you know of any grants or where you are going to start to try and get this money from to create this?
At the moment, in terms of grants, I'm not sure what the process would be for fund allocation because this bill would definitely be expensive. However, though it may be challenging to find the money to allocate, I don't think there's much more that we should prioritize over the mental health of our students that affects not only their success, but also their well-being for the rest of their lives. I will be looking into funding more throughout the research process, and as I mentioned earlier, reaching out to the Board of Education for their suggestions.
Thank you. I yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Seeing that our 3-minute questioning period has elapsed, we will now be moving on to the next BDR proposal. This BDR was submitted by Youth Legislator Lara, and it'll be number 10 on our list. Youth Legislator Lara, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
As Youth Legislator Lara is approaching, just a technical thing. I yield my time to the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, not thank you, Chair. So if for the Vice Chair, thank you, Madam Vice Chair, or thank you, Mr. Chair.
In the Nevada youth, we have seen a lot of challenges with violence. And I want to just share a small anecdote with my personal experience, seeing one of my good friends be lost to the cause of being lost in violence and gang violence. I think that a lot of the time, the reason why a lot of youth are lost in that sort of violence is because they don't have any type of mental health resources to help them. More specifically with this specific friend of mine, I know that she didn't have anyone to talk to. Her home issues were very severe. And I think that establishing good mental health services within schools would be beneficial, not just towards their mental health, but towards the violence that is increasing in schools. And we have seen the state of Nevada try to change that with implementing police officers in the schools. And clearly, through social media and news, we have seen that that's not the solution. And I think that turning towards this would be a better solution, or at least improve the violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lara. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the south, I see Makababad and Wong. From the north, I see Thornton. So we'll go Youth Legislator Wong, then Youth Legislator Makababad, and then Youth Legislator Thornton. Each of you will have 1 minute to ask your questions. Youth Legislator Wong, you have the floor.
Youth Legislator Wong, for the record, you said in your BDR proposal mental health services. Is there anything in specific that would entail?
I made it more general for a reason, because I don't want to make it too specific just for specific students. Students might be dealing with home abuse, somebody with homelessness, etc. The list goes on. So that's why I made it more general to allocate for more students.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Wong. Youth Legislator Makababad, you are recognized for 1 minute.
So your bill states that there would be no cost for this. So if you have specific no cost mental health services that you want to implement in high schools, could you mention them?
I just want to clarify the question. Are you asking how I would allocate the funding for that?
No, but you said there would be no cost to the mental health services. So I'm wondering if you have specific mental health services, like more therapists, etc. Because therapists it comes with a cost, you know. So what are the specific mental health services that you want?
Well, some of my research has shown that mental health services in general can be anywhere from $65 to $250 per hour. And I think that in order to include everyone, I think we would have all types of mental health services with any problem that a student has.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lara and Youth Legislator Makababad. Your time has elapsed. Moving on, Youth Legislator Thornton, you have 1 minute.
Thank you,
You're
Chair.
recognized for 1 minute.
My question, well, first of all, just a clarification. In your BDR proposal, it says without cost to the pupil during the school day. Do you mean without, at a different time than when their classes are, or something like that, instead of cost as in money?
Oh, I meant as in additional time after school or before school when the students have time.
Okay, thank you. I yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. We will now be moving on to the next BDR proposal, BDR Proposal Number 11, which was submitted by Youth Legislator, or Vice Chair Lyle. Vice Chair Lyle, you are recognized for Do we have a point of inquiry from Youth Legislator Krieger?
I did. I'm so sorry to cut in, but I actually had a question about Senator Wiener's most recent note. If we're unsure about the preferred pronouns of a youth legislator, or they're not part of the gender binary, can we refer to them as chair? I just wanted to make sure I understood. Sorry.
I second that
I'm sorry,
question.
I was walking over, so please restate your question.
If we aren't familiar with a youth legislator's preferred pronouns, or they aren't part of the gender binary, can we refer to them as just chair?
Or chair by name. Chair Dimison, Vice Chair Lyle.
Oh, got it. I wasn't sure. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you for that clarifying question, Youth Legislator Krieger. Youth Legislator Lyle, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
This is Youth Legislator Lyle for the record. Nevada has consistently ranked 51st for youth mental health across the board. We as students have felt these repercussions the most. And it has been found by Mental Health America that 61.4% of Nevada youth with major depressive episodes have not received the mental health treatment that they need. And more than half of them have other mental illnesses and have not received any treatments or any type of counseling. And this is really incredibly problematic in our status quo, especially with the pandemic, as we've seen increased isolation and other habits. Currently, I want to address this issue by ensuring that we have a mandatory ratio of 1 to 1,000 psychologists, one psychologist for 1,000 students, to ensure that they can have their needs met. And I've specifically picked a school psychologist because the current ratios in CCSD is 1 student for 1,866 students, and in Washoe County, 1 psychologist for 2,000 students. And it's because of this discrepancy that I've decided to pinpoint school psychologists. It's time to ensure that we close the gap in this ratio and ensure that every one of our constituents and youth, just like us, are able to ensure that they can get the education they need without the roadblock of any mental health issues that could plague them. I know other youth legislators have also brought forth mental health education plans, and this just shows how pertinent this issue is today. I thank the chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lyle. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the north, I see Greenstein, and from the south, I see Youth Legislator Kington. Youth Legislator Kington will go first, and then Youth Legislator Greenstein, and then we'll just split it down the middle. Each will be recognized for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Youth Legislator Kington, you are recognized for 1 minute and 30 seconds.
My question is, will one school psychologist be able to cater to 1,000 kids?
So actually, I'm glad you brought this up. So the recommended is varying right now. I've seen it from 1 to 750 to 1 to 500. But the reason I'm making it 1 to 1,000 is because we have discrepancies like 1 to 2,000, and I want to ease the district into this. And I think it's going to be a lot more manageable than the current ratio that we have.
I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Kington. Youth Legislator Greenstein, you are recognized for 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. In the speech, you mentioned the ratio of school psychologists to students, and I was wondering if there are other types of mental health professionals who might not be considered school psychologists, but who provide similar support to students outside of that ratio.
So we do have people like school counselors and social workers, but really the same problem still persists. With social workers, we also have a very large gap in the discrepancy per student to social worker ratio, and we also have a big gap with student to counselor ratio, as it's already been mentioned. But the reason I've pinpointed psychologists is because they're specifically licensed and trained and have gone to school to specifically deal with mental health issues that the youth of Nevada face today.
I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein. We will now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 12, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Miller. Youth Legislator Miller, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Moss. Youth Legislator Miller, for the record, Nevada faces an ongoing mental health crisis, ranking 51st in youth mental health multiple years in a row. 12.7% of youth in Nevada are currently suffering with depression. This has been exacerbated dramatically in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic, as the statistic is from 2019. In addition to this, this is increasing the number of youth in the juvenile system. With the ongoing mental health crisis, 50 to 70% of inmates in the juvenile system suffer from some kind of mental health issue. Teachers are not mental health professionals. Students in school are not able to have access to enough mental health professionals to get the care that they require. In my town hall meeting that I hosted, no students in the room had ever met with their school counselor. Many of them did not even know who their school counselor was. Students are not being given the resources that they need to control the mental health crisis. So my bill would require the State Board of Education to establish a binding minimum number of counselors for students, because currently, as Youth Legislator Lyle said, it is one for every approximately 2,000 students. And in addition to this, it would require the referral of people to a counselor when appropriate. So this would set in restorative justice. Rather than just punishing the student, it would refer them to actually get the help that they need to resolve the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Miller. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. I see one from the north, Youth Legislator Krieger, and then one from the south from Youth Legislator Lyle. Just a point of inquiry for Senator Wiener. If I would like to ask a question, should I hand off to Vice Chair Lyle for my period, or should I just time myself to keep it quick? Okay, so we'll go to Youth Legislator Krieger, then Lyle, and then myself. So each youth legislator will be recognized for 1 minute. Youth Legislator Krieger, you're recognized for 1 minute.
I just wanted to say that I love the idea of a referral program, but I was wondering if you could provide a little more information on how that would work. Would it be more of a digital interface, or would students be reporting other students to counselors in person?
Yes, thank you for your question, Youth Legislator Miller, for the record. So how this would work would be that if a student is getting in trouble, rather than just referring them directly to the juvenile system, they would first be referred to a school counselor to get assistance with mental health, if it's a mental health issue, and to get restorative justice training rather than just punishment.
Youth Legislator Krieger, do you yield the remainder of your time?
I do yield the remainder of my time. Sorry for the delay.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Krieger. Youth Legislator Lau, you are recognized for 1 minute.
So you used the term counselor. Can you define and sort of like specify what a counselor is? Is that a social worker? Is that someone to help you get into college? What does that look like?
Yes. So in this situation, a counselor is going to be a mental health professional. I did leave it a little bit more broad because sometimes psychologists can be very expensive for school systems, but I think that a counselor who's trained in mental health potentially could be a psychologist, but just a more broad term to get more people who can help in the schools that aren't just teachers.
I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle. I'm recognized for 1 minute. Youth Legislator Miller, so we've had a lot of discussion about mental health. We talked about that specifically in the town hall I had. And so just one question I had was, so in the private sector, right, psychologists are usually paid more than working in the public sector, like the school districts. And I know a lot of the BDR requests we have today are mandating a certain ratio or a certain number of psychologists. What sort of legislative action or what power will we have to hold school districts to the numbers that our legislation sets forth? Because I do know we have a hiring issue right now.
Yes, so I'm open to adapting the number and having us decide the number of mental health professionals, but I did leave it to the State Board of Education as of now because I feel like each school is a little bit different in its structure and in how many counselors it needs. Some schools are in more crisis areas for the mental health issue, and they might need more there than other schools, so kind of letting the State Board of Education determine how many each school needs.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Miller. We will now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 13. Unfortunately, Youth Legislator Moss is unable to join us today, but Youth Legislator Moss did submit his presentation in advance, so I will now read it for the record. Just as a note, there will be no question and answer period, given that Youth Legislator Moss is absent. Thank you, and I am sad that I could not, or as Youth Legislator Moss, thank you, and I am sad that I could not be here with you today. I would like to talk with you today about my proposal. In the state of Nevada, students have limited access to affordable higher education. In high school, students have the opportunity to get ahead by taking dual credit courses at universities or community colleges to gain college credit while still getting the credits they need to graduate. These programs have had a history of being affordable, but recently, prices have soared to take a college course for high school students, with myself and others in my district paying upwards of $600 and more for only 2 classes a semester. This situation is not sustainable for students who want to get a head start in their college career, and it greatly affects lower income students and their ability to take higher quality high school courses that count towards college and overall makes pursuing higher education difficult. My bill seeks to provide funds for these programs and to make them more affordable for all students so that everyone can have the opportunity to pursue higher education. We will now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 14, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Price. Youth Legislator Price, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. My bill draft request would put a student representative on all boards of trustees in their respective districts. This representative would serve a 2-year term. This bill would benefit the youth of Nevada by not just promoting educational advocacy, but also addressing many of the issues that the Nevada youth face. This bill will require a per diem and would cover transportation if necessary for the board meetings that this representative would attend. In addition, similarly to the representative to the Nevada Board of Education, which is what my bill is based off of, this representative would receive $60 per meeting that they attend for up to 12 meetings per year. I would like to thank you all for listening to my short little speech. I hope that you guys can move to consider my bill. I am open to any questions or suggestions as to how my bill could be made better. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Price. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the South, I see Miller, Lyle, Craver, Olware, and from the North, I see Thornton. So we'll do 4 youth legislators asking questions this period. We will go to Youth Legislator Boulware first, Youth Legislator Miller, and then Lyle, and then we will go to Youth Legislator Craver based off of recency and precedence, and then Youth Legislator Thornton, you'll have priority. So Youth Legislator Boulware, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. I like your bill idea. I am curious though, why 2 year? Why 2 years?
So I decided to have this member to the Board of Trustees serve for 2 years just to provide to provide some sort of stability so that we're not changing this representative every year. We can expect a lot more consistency that way. Thank you.
Do you yield the remainder of your time, Youth Legislator Boulware?
Yes, my apologies. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Boulware. We will now be moving on to Youth Legislator Miller. You are recognized for 45 seconds.
Youth Legislator Miller, for the record, I was wondering if there was a specific reason why you made them a non-voting member and if you think that that's beneficial.
So in my original version of my BDR proposal, I would have liked to have them be a voting member, but technically that is unconstitutional. They have to be 18 years old to be able to be a part of any form of public office. But on the other hand, I do think that even though they are a non-voting member, this representative to the Board of Trustees would still have a very significant impact. Thank you.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Miller. Youth Legislator Craver, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
My question was actually the same as Youth Legislator Boulware's, so I yield my time back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Craver. Youth Legislator Lyle, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
So you talked about $60, I believe it was, per session. So how did you come up with that number?
So thank you for the question, by the way. So currently, as it stands, what my bill was based on was the student representative to the Nevada Board of Education, and currently they get paid $80 per meeting that they attend for up to 12 meetings per year. So I decided on $60 as a compromise because of the fact that these boards of trustees that these members would be serving on are more local, and they also wouldn't require as much travel. So that's why I settled on $60. Thank you.
I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle. We will now be moving on to the next BDR proposal, which is Bdr Proposal Number 15. This BDR proposal was submitted by Youth Legislator Rockest. You are recognized for 2 minutes.
When I worked at Raising Cane's, I was constantly bombarded by constant emails, texts, calls. They'd call me up and they'd say, Evan, look, we need you to work. And then it'd happen again. Hey, Evan, we need you to work. And I always had the choice not to work. However, when I got home from working at Raising Cane's, I didn't stop working at Raising Cane's. I kept on working because if I didn't check my phone and they called me and they said, hey, Evan, you got to come in, then there was a major issue. Because what they said or what they implied was that if you weren't willing and able to be accessible to Raising Cane's 24 hours a day, well, then you weren't ready for promotions. You weren't ready to be a manager. And as all of us have mentioned, there is a mental health crisis. And I believe that this stems from one of the major problems in our society today is that there is not a division between work and home. In fact, the lines are being blurred. And now work is creeping into the home, the stresses of work are creeping into the home, and there's no time to relax anymore. And so, what would my bill do? Well, quite simply, this bill would give an employee of an employer with 10 or more employees the right to not view, respond, or engage with work outside of paid hours, including without limitation by email, phone call, video call, or text message. Quite simply, if you are being compelled to respond to calls, texts, or emails outside of work hours, then you should get paid for it. That sounds reasonable enough. And there would be exceptions to, certain fields. Like if you're a doctor, if you're a police officer, I understand that you have to respond to texts outside of your job. But I just believe that in general, students, as we start to enter into the workforce, this is a more pressing problem and it must be addressed. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Rogas. Your time has elapsed. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. Okay. From the north, I see Thornton. I see Krieger, Greenstein. And then if you're in the south, please raise your hand high so I can see. I see Macababad, Bentham, Thurgood, Wong, and Price. Wow, a lot of questions, everyone. All right, so Thornton, you will go first, given that you have priority since you were not able to ask a question last time. And then it'll go to Wong, and then Price, and then Macababad. So we will start with Youth Legislator Thornton, then Wong, then Price, and Macababad. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. My question to Youth Legislator Rogas is, does this bill apply to only youth, so 0 to 18, or does it apply to adults as well?
It applies to every employee that works for an employer that has 10 or more employers.
I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Youth Legislator Wong, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Youth Legislator Wong, for the record. How feasible do you think this bill will be, considering the backlash that it might face from very large corporations in Nevada?
Well, that's certainly a very strong thing that we need to take into consideration. But I believe that it is these very corporations that we should be serving to be against. If we're going to be scared of a bill because corporations might not like it, then maybe that's a strong reason why we should be in favor of the bill, despite what the corporations are saying. I yield the rest of my time.
I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Wong. And just as a point of order, the individual asking the question will yield their time, not the person who is being questioned. Youth Legislator Price, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. Do you think that this could potentially negatively impact businesses, like especially the smaller ones?
No, there would be an incentive system in place so that if you did have to respond to calls or texts outside of work, you get it paid for that.
Okay, thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Price. Youth Legislator Macababad, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you. How can we ensure that employers will follow this policy?
Well, it could be a simple, fine imposed on the employer if they were to break these rules and stipulations.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Right. Thank you, Youth Legislator Rogas. You are excused from the witnesses table, or the witnesses chair. We will now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 16, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Seddon. Youth Legislator Seddon, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Moss. Good afternoon, fellow youth legislators. My BDR proposal focuses on the lack of personal technology available to students in the educational system. As we all know, especially with the pandemic, education has really shifted more to the idea of doing things digitally. And so in today's day and age, a personal device such as a tablet or a laptop is essentially the same as a textbook and a notebook and a piece of paper or pencil. And so I believe that every student should have access to this inside and outside the classroom, as well as access to the internet. So my BDR proposal would require all public schools to provide a personal tablet or laptop, as well as a Wi-Fi hotspot or other form of internet access to each student. Students can opt out of this program and say, well, I have my own. And I believe this program would be very beneficial to kind of close the gap of just kind of the class gap in education, as we know that technology is a heavily monetary kind of object in education. And so I believe that allowing schools to provide it for all students would level the playing field and allowing students to have the same access to education. I understand that technology can be expensive, and so I believe funding can come through federal grants that I can look at later, or as well as a new state tax on all sales of technology such as tablets or laptops, and this would be a minimal tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Seddon. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. Okay. From the south, I see Lyle, Bentham, and Price. From the north, I see Greenstein and Krieger. Okay, so based off of precedence, we will go to Krieger, and then we'll go to Bentham, and then we will go to Price. And then Greenstein and Lyle, I have not forgotten about you. This will count towards your priority. So, actually, no, we can permit one more questioning period. Youth Legislator Greenstein, you will also be able to ask a question, each of you 45 seconds. Youth Legislator Krieger, you're recognized for 45 seconds.
I wanted to start by saying that I think this bill is incredibly well thought out. I did have a question, though. In regards to Wi-Fi connections, are you taking into account that we may need to build, I'm not entirely sure how Wi-Fi setup works in all regions, but if some schools don't have very strong connections to Wi-Fi, does this bill incorporate funding for that? Or does it just not take regions into account?
I was thinking for the Wi-Fi hotspot that it would be kind of like the hotspot thing, whether it be like, I know like Google and some other companies make things where it's like just regional, and so I didn't consider like regional as much just because I was thinking Wi-Fi would be just provided to each student individually.
Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Krieger. We will now be moving on to Youth Legislator Price. You are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. This is just more of a clarification question. Are the access to devices and then the access to internet connection two like separate ideas, I guess?
I believe they would be put together, so the schools would provide access to each student for a device and Wi-Fi, and the student can choose either one, and so they're not like together, so you can't, it's not like you can have both or none, you can choose which one you would need based on your situation. So I believe they'd both be incorporated in the bill, but the students can choose which one they would need at that time.
Okay, thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Price. We will now be moving on to Youth Legislator Bentham. You're recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair Demison. Do you have an estimate of how much money this would cost?
I do not. I can get back to you with that if you would like, but I have not looked into that.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Bentham. And finally, Youth Legislator Greenstein. You're recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. My question is if the personal portable technology device and the internet hotspot would be permanently given to the student, or if that would just be for the duration of the school year or some other time frame.
I believe it would be for the duration of the school year. So at the beginning of the school year, the student would receive the device and/or hotspot, and at the end, it would be required to be returned. Say if it was damaged through the school year, that can be replaced. But I would say like if it was damaged maybe like more than once, the student would be responsible for half of that. But I believe it would be just for the school year period.
Thank you, and I yield back my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Greenstein. Youth Legislator Seddon, you are excused from the witness chair. We will now be moving on to Bdr Proposal Number 17, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Thornton. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Youth Legislator Thornton for the record. Our task was to sum up our BDRs in 2 minutes. My task was to put the most challenging and dehumanizing year of my life into 2 minutes. It's been 381 days since I got my last concussion, and I have the scars internal and external to prove it. If you don't understand how brutal concussions and traumatic brain injuries are, I'm here somehow still alive to tell you. Not every injury is prolonged and healed as mine, as you can see my glasses. However, I am the example of why we need this bill so badly. Concussions and traumatic brain injuries cause over 300,000 ER visits every year for youth 0 to 18, and those are only the ones reported. The Nevada Interscholastic Athletics Association has 120 member schools. My athletic trainer sees at least 2 people per day for concussion symptoms. If we do the math on that, 120 schools, 2 people per day, 7 days in a week, 26 weeks in a school year, that is almost 44,000 concussions, 44,000 traumatic brain injuries. That is 6% of the youth in our state per year who have concussions. That's 6% of us who miss school, have massive headaches, can't read, can't write, are nauseous all the time, can't connect to the world because you can't look at your devices, can't take the SAT or ACT to get into colleges. I still haven't taken it because I'm not allowed to. And whose brains are changed forever because the brain does not heal, it creates pathways around the injured parts of the brain. On top of this, if you have anxiety or depression or suicidal thoughts before the concussion exacerbates these symptoms as well. My BDR will amend the current law brought forward by the Speaker of the House, Jason Frierson. It updates the return to play accommodations that are already in law and adds in return to learn policies and accommodations so that students can come back to school. This is all without a fiscal note because bills with fiscal notes most likely die in fiscal committees. The NIAA is already reforming their RTP and RTL as we speak. The UNR Neuromechanics Laboratory already supports this bill. Washoe County School District is creating new policies at the prompting of this bill and of the Neuromechanics Lab, and the Carson City School District is in the process of reforming these policies as well. I hope that you will vote for this bill, and it will make a huge impact on students in our school system. I already have proponents of this bill and more to come, and I hope you'll stand with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Just as a point of inquiry for the legislators in the north, just to keep the meeting going, I am banging the gavel at certain time periods during your speeches. Are you able to hear that? I will.
No, we can't hear that.
Okay, so what I'll do moving forward, if we have any speeches left from the north, I will put my hand up with 1 finger that will indicate that 1 minute has elapsed. 2 fingers will indicate 1 minute 30 seconds. 3 fingers will indicate 150. Right?
I'm pretty sure we don't have any more speeches left in the north, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect then. Thank you. We'll now be moving on to the questioning period for Youth Legislator Thornton. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. I see Rogus and Price from the south. And then I also see, I believe, Seddon from the north. Okay, so we will go to Youth Legislator Seddon first, then Rogus, and then Price. You will all be recognized for 1 minute. Youth Legislator Seddon, you are recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. I have a question as to what the return to learn policies are currently and how you would propose to change them to help students.
Thank you for that question. Currently in Nevada, it is one of the 11 states in the United States who does not have return to learn policies. This means there are no accommodations for the students who need to come back to school. They don't have accommodations for sunglasses. They don't have accommodations for shortened days. They don't have accommodations for anything that a student may potentially need. Thank you.
Thank you, and I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Seddon. Youth Legislator Rogist, you are recognized for 1 minute.
I yield my time as Youth Legislator Seddon answered or asked my question.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Rogist. Youth Legislator Price, you are recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. Do you think that the NIAA would support your bill based on, I know they have a form that you're supposed to sign saying that if you do get injured in a sporting activity of some sort, then the NIAA will not be held liable. Do you think that based on that information, they would support your bill?
Thank you for the question, and absolutely. I actually sat in with a meeting with them last week in which the director of the neuromechanics lab and I talked to them about reforming their accommodations, in which they have already started, as we speak, to reform these accommodations. The liability associated with concussions and traumatic brain injuries is completely different than the accommodations that would be given to the students, and the accommodations that students truly need. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would just like to express my sympathy towards your situation, and I do hope that we can make some sort of positive change to prevent things like this from happening again.
I appreciate
I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Price. Your time has elapsed. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are excused. We will now be moving on to the next Bdr proposal, Bdr Proposal Number 18, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Walker. Youth Legislator Walker, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, all. I think we are very much aware that youth in Nevada are experiencing an escalating mental health crisis. They face several obstacles to gaining proper care and support. As we know that Nevada ranks 51st in providing resources to mental health, this indicates that Nevada's youth face a higher prevalence of mental health issues and lower rates of access to care. Since April 2020, the CDC reported that the number of mental health-related emergency department visits among all pediatric cases increased. It increased by 24% for children ages 5 to 12 and 31% for children ages 12 to 17. It is imperative that Nevada prepares all of its students with the information and tools essential to promote positive mental health and to seek mental health support and treatment when needed. So the bill I'm proposing is to require schools to provide medically accurate, age-suitable mental health education from a trained teacher. And this instruction would be in elementary, middle school, and high school. Hopefully, this legislation would increase mental health awareness, empower students to seek support, and decrease the stigma related to experiencing mental health challenges. We need to recognize a solution to the youth mental health crisis in Nevada, and this bill proposal could be the first of many steps to help our youth better cope with mental health issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Walker. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the south, I see Laura, Kington, Miller, and Craver. Okay. Based on recency, it'll go to Kington and Miller first. And then it will go to Laura and then Craver. So everyone will get 45 seconds. Youth Legislator Kington, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
I was curious what you meant by age suitable. Is this teaching going to be different based on middle school, elementary, and high school students?
Yes, it will, because some topics for like elementary students are harder to grasp, say like talking about suicide versus trying to educate a high schooler about it.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Kington. Youth Legislator Miller, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Youth Legislator Miller, for the record, I was wondering what training a teacher would have to undergo to be recognized as a trained teacher for this course.
So I'm not exactly sure of the exact training, but there's licenses that mental health educators take to get certified, so teachers would have to go through a similar training.
So then a follow-up question, would they be a certified counselor or would they be just like a teacher at the school?
I think they would still be a teacher at the school. For example, how we have health teachers, but they're not exactly counselors.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Miller. Youth Legislator Lara, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
My question is, would providing mental health education be suitable for elementary students? Is there any evidence that suggests that elementary students truly need mental health services?
So I don't have a specific case to point you towards, but I feel like at any age you can experience mental health issues because even elementary school students face heightened stressors such like homelessness or food insecurity.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lara. Youth Legislator Craver, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you. So I was just wondering what makes your mental health bill stand out from the other 5 we've heard today, and why should we pick yours?
So I want to preface by saying that all of the bills we've heard so far have been very good, but my bill focuses on the education aspects because even if we have these resources, not everybody is educated on how to obtain these resources.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Craver. We will now be moving on. Youth Legislator Walker, you are excused. We will now be moving on to the final BDR proposal, BDR Proposal Number 19, which was submitted by Youth Legislator Wong. Youth Legislator Wong, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Dimison. Youth Legislator Wong, for the record. BDR 19 would require each school district to create a program to engage in partnerships with organizations to encourage participation in STEM of pupils from underrepresented groups. Nevada should support STEM education for 3 main reasons. First, opportunities and better jobs. Providing STEM education opportunities to more minority and underrepresented communities will result in better paying jobs. A recent study showed that 69% of the STEM workforce is comprised of white men. Historically, women, Blacks, and Latinx have been underrepresented in STEM employment. STEM development is critical to developing skills needed for taking on better paying jobs of the present and future. Second, the economy will improve and it diversifies our state. Nevada has attracted technology companies such as Google, Tesla, and Switch to locate to our state. By providing STEM education support to our students, we improve opportunities to be hired by these companies. And third, the third reason is that the lives improve. In a UNLV study, the most common occupation in the Las Vegas area is a retail salesperson who makes $25,570 a year. However, individual renters in the Las Vegas area need to earn at least $33,920 a year to afford a studio apartment. The majority of low-income earners in our state are from minority and communities and women. The biggest link to increasing diversity in STEM fields is education. Increasing outreach will improve good-paying jobs and expand social justice by improving the livelihoods and education of everyone in our community. Without this fundamental basic support at an early age, so many opportunities and the potential of our state's youth will be lost.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Wong. Any youth legislators with questions at this time, please raise your hand. From the South, I see Kington, Lyle, Walker, And from the north, I see Thornton. Okay. So it will first go to Youth Legislator Walker based on recency, and then it will go to Youth Legislator Thornton, and then we'll go to Lyle and Kington. Youth Legislator Walker, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I definitely agree that STEM education is very important, but would this bill run the risk of placing less emphasis on humanities education that some see as like almost equally important?
Youth Legislator Wong, for the record, this would have no impact on other different sections of education. It would really just be put more into focus for people who are willing, for students who want to seek out these opportunities outside of school, because there just aren't enough opportunities for people to expand outside of the humanities subjects.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Walker. Youth Legislator Thornton, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. My question to you is, do you know of any programs in other states that are like this?
Youth Legislator Wong, for the record, I am not aware of any currently. However, I could get back to you on that individually, but there really isn't any additional funding that would probably be necessary because it would be divided into the administrations of individual schools. So I don't think there would be any problems that I could foresee with this bill.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Thornton. Youth Legislator Kington, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
I was wondering if you knew what percentage of Nevada's youth fall under this underrepresented category.
I don't know an exact number or percentage. However, I do have an individual case where a nurse who was working to help my grandmother had a son who was a part of the African American community who did not have any access to these resources, and they immigrated from Nigeria with the hope that they could provide more opportunity for their son, and they just weren't able to have it. And I think there are plenty of cases like this in Nevada that really inspired me to create this bill.
Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Kington. Youth Legislator Lyle, you are recognized for 45 seconds.
So if businesses have to take it upon themselves to sort of make these connections with schools, how are we going to incentivize them to maintain these programs and also start them in the first place?
Yes, thank you for that question. There are a lot of opportunities. It would really be more internships that would be provided to students, but it's actually incentivized already because it is less costly to employ in-state rather than out-of-state. So if we were able to fund more for education in the state for STEM, they would be able to employ people from Nevada rather than going to states like California or Washington, who already have a lot of those resources.
I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle. Youth Legislator Wong are excused. Seeing that we have no more BDR proposals to continue with, I would just like to note that I was very impressed today by the issues that every youth legislator had brought forward, and it really reflects that this year we have a very transformative body and that we are really going to get things done this year. So I'm really excited, and we'll now be moving on. So thank you, everybody, for your presentations and your questions. And so now that, because we have heard all these BDR proposals, I would like to give every youth legislator a quick 3-minute recess to consider all the information that has been presented. Youth legislators, please take this time to rank the top 3 BDR proposals you've heard today. This is also the time to decide which singular BDR proposal, if any, you would like to co-sponsor. Just note, you do not have to co-sponsor. Senator Wiener? Yes. You only get to co-sponsor one bill, and if you do not wish to co-sponsor a bill, you do not have to. After this recess, I will ask Ms. Aguayo to call the roll to determine co-sponsorships. When your name is called, please provide the number of the BDR proposal you would like to co-sponsor. After that, we will do another roll call vote, and this is the roll call vote to state your vote on the BDR proposals you would like to see advanced to the October 20th meeting. When your name is called, please provide the numbers for your top 3 BDR proposal references or preferences. At this time, we will take a 3-minute recess.
Just so we can go smoothly in that ranking, you don't need to say my first choice, my second choice, and my third choice. You just need to provide 3 BDR numbers. Thank you.
The Nevada Youth Legislature will now exit recess. We will now come back to order. Words cannot state how difficult this decision, I know, is for a lot of us. That 3 minutes definitely did not feel long enough. So I think, again, it goes to how important all the issues we have selected are today. So as I stated before the recess, we will now begin with a roll call vote to determine co-sponsorships. I repeat, this is not the BDRs. These are not the BDR proposals that you are requesting to advance. Senator Wiener?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on a question that I just received, I learned so much from you all. You do not have to have your co-sponsorship request or preference be one of the 3 BDRs that you're going to vote for. It could be outside of that. So you could have BDR Z and still vote for BDR XYZ or and NOP. There you go. Sir Berenson, yes.
What is the BDR co-sponsorship?
You get your name on the bill as a co-sponsor. It gives you the experience of being a co-sponsor. We mirror as much as we can the legislative process, and it gives you the opportunity to stand by a bill. And if it moves forward as one of the final two, and then the final bill, often we bring the co-sponsors to the table to testify, if it's possible. But it gives you that privilege of making that decision, which one you want to stand by.
All right. So just continuing on that. So remember, this roll call vote is the co-sponsorship. You were just putting your name on the BDR that you would on a BDR. You are not actually voting for this BDR to make it past this round of voting into our top 7. So when your name is called, please provide the number of that one BDR proposal, and remember that you do not have to co-sponsor a BDR proposal. So co-sponsoring is optional in this case. So Ms. Aguayo, would you please call the roll on co-sponsorships?
Youth Legislator Bentham.
BDR 12.
Youth Legislator Buttnager.
BDR 4.
Youth Legislator Boulware.
BDR 14.
Youth Legislator Craver.
I don't want to co-sponsor any of them, if that's okay.
Youth Legislator Greenstein.
BDR 16, please.
Youth Legislator Keene.
Nah.
Youth Legislator Kington.
BDR 12.
Youth Legislator Krieger. Youth Legislator Lara.
BDR 11.
Youth Legislator Macababid.
BDR 17.
Youth Legislator Miller.
BDR 11.
Youth Legislator Moss, absent. Youth Legislator Price.
BDR 3.
Youth Legislator Roggist.
Am I able to co-sponsor multiple? BDR 6.
Youth Legislator Sutton.
BDR 6.
Youth Legislator Thornton.
BDR 3.
Youth Legislator Thurgood.
BDR 17.
Youth Legislator Walker.
BDR 17.
Youth Legislator Wong.
BDR 16.
Vice Chair Lyle.
6.
And Chair Dimison.
BDR 18. All right. Secretary Aguayo, we have roll.
Just for clarification, is this for the BDR votes now?
Yes, for the co-sponsorship. We're good with that. Are we good with that?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So now that we have taken care of this, the co-sponsorship votes, we will now move on to the vote to advance 7 BDR proposals onto the October 20th meeting. So when your name is called, please state the numbers of the 3 BDR proposals that you would like to see move forward. Again, the 7 BDR proposals with the most votes in this meeting will advance to the October 20th, 2022 NYL meeting. Ms. Aguayo, will you please call the roll?
Youth Legislator Bentham.
BDR 1, 4, and 12.
Youth Legislator Buttnager.
BDR 2, 14, and 6.
Youth Legislator Boulware,
BDR 4, 14, and 13.
Youth Legislator Craver,
BDR 4, 6, and 9.
Youth Legislator Greenstein,
BDR 16, 6, and 17.
Youth Legislator Keene,
1, 4, and 5.
Youth Legislator Kington,
BDR 13, 12, and 17.
Youth Legislator Krieger,
BDRs 5, 6, and 17.
Youth Legislator Lara,
BDR 11, 12, and 17.
Youth Legislator Macababet,
BDRs 4, 11, and 15.
Youth Legislator Miller,
BDRs 1, 19, and 12.
Youth Legislator Price,
BDR 3, 14, and 17.
Youth Legislator Rogest,
BDR 1, 6, and 17.
Youth Legislator Sutton,
BDR 4, 6, and 17.
Youth Legislator Thornton,
BDR 17, 5, and 3.
Youth Legislator Thurgood,
BDRs 4, 6, and 17.
Youth Legislator Walker,
BDRs 4, 9, and 17.
Youth Legislator Wong,
BDR 6, 16, and 17.
Vice Chair Lyle,
BDRs 12, 6, and 11.
and Chair Dimison.
BDRs 18, 5, and 11. All right, and then Secretary Aguayo will just give you a moment to tally up those votes and see which ones are at the top 7. Yeah, well, so we'll just take a moment for that.
The BDRs with the top 7 votes are BDR 1, BDR 4, BDR 5, BDR 6, BDR 11, BDR 12, and BDR 17.
Thank you, Secretary Aguayo, for providing us with those 7 BDR proposals. Youth legislators whose BDR proposals were chosen today will have the presentation and opportunity to give more in-depth presentations about their BDR proposals during our October 20th NYL meeting. Congratulations to the authors of those pieces of legislation. And after these presentations, youth legislators will then vote to select the top 2 BDR proposals that will be heard at our meeting on November 15th, 2022. We will now move on to the next order of business, which is Agenda Item 6, which is a preview of the upcoming activities, meetings, and trainings of the Nevada Youth Legislature. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 20th, 2022. I look forward to seeing all of you again at this next meeting. We will work together to give further consideration to the 7 BDR proposals that we have chosen to advance today and select 2 of them for our official hearing on November 15, 2022. After our meeting on October 20th, we will receive training regarding both the public testimony and outreach recruitment assignments. Our public testimony plans are due on or before November 19, 2022. Our outreach recruitment letters or videos are due on or before December 10, 2022. Everyone will have a copy of the due dates of these assignments. Please write these down. It is a good idea to send in the assignments before the due date, just in case of technical difficulties. We can sort that out instead of submitting late assignments to our staffers. The assignment templates for these activities are in our training binders, and Mrs. Ashdown will also send PDF fillable forms in each of your emails. We need to send our completed plans to Senator Wieners, our legislators, and Mrs. Ashdown when these assignments are due. And due to a scheduling conflict, unfortunately, the NYL gathering in Las Vegas on Tuesday, January 10, 2022 has been rescheduled for 2:30 to 4 p.m. on Thursday, January 12, 2022. The NYL board meeting is scheduled from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on that same day. The NYL gathering in Carson City will still be held from 3 to 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 11, 2022. Please add these events to your calendars and make plans to attend. There's a document in your meeting folder that lists these upcoming events. So we will now be moving on to Agenda Item 7, which is time for youth legislators' comments, questions, concerns, and or discussion. Senator Wiener, please lead this portion of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Wow. Having been part of this program since the very get-go and experiencing the progression of legislative ideas, I can share from great experience what joy that all of us have for the intentions that you set with your BDRs, with the ways you prepared for them, with the passion you have for them, and the way you conducted yourself during this entire process. It can be long, and you did it with dignity, full attention, and full commitment to the unfolding of this experience. So I want to thank you. I know I can speak for everybody on this one. Thank you for your excellence and the level of commitment that you have invested in this program up to this point, including this day. This is a highlight. You've built toward this, and look what you've done. Amazing. So I'm here to respond to any questions. That you've had a big experience here, and I'm here to respond to any questions you might have, because you will then next month do this in more depth on the 7 finalist BDRs that you just selected, and in November we will have the top 2, and we will have basically legislative hearings on each one. We will have people who have vested interests as government affairs or administrators or whatever the bills are, because we don't know. We will work with the bill sponsor of each of those 2 final proposals to determine what would be a good list of witnesses in support of the measure. We will work collaboratively with the sponsors of the 2 BDR proposals to locate those people and have them at the table testifying on the measures. So this will mirror as closely as possible a legislative experience in full gear with lobbyists or others, government affairs people here, or vested parties. So we will walk with you step by step. And thank you so much for your cooperation and your full engagement today. It's just thrilling. So questions? Thank you, thank you. Yes.
So for the main bill that we sponsor, should we be preparing speeches in the meantime for them? I don't know, to sponsor the bill?
Let's see where we need to move toward that. So right now what we want to encourage, and Tina and I will, we work on timelines for these meetings and trainings, and we will determine how much time will be allocated for each of the 7 presenters, because we did say we'll get that information out to the presenters, but right now we're working up to the 7 for October, and then the final 2. And yes, for that, those who are the final 2 sponsors will be at the table and do the presentation in a little bit more thorough fashion, because it will be, could be the same testimony that they provide before a legislative committee in Carson City. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Senator Wiener, we do have a question from the north from Youth Legislator Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. So I just
Please go ahead.
I have a couple questions. So, first question is, Chair Dimison talked about the fact that there's the gathering training in Las Vegas on January 12th on Thursday, but he also mentioned that there's one in Reno too, but the one in Reno is not on our piece of paper.
It's on the master schedule that we've already provided you.
Okay.
It's on that. The why you received that is that the one in Las Vegas is the one that changed.
Got it.
It only is a rescheduled
Yeah,
date.
and that it was scheduled for a different day, and we had to move it because of conflict over legislative times and needs in Carson City and here. So we've moved the Las Vegas. The Carson City stays the same.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is that all of the information on what exactly we can present and the time limits and everything will be sent to the 7 presenters for next time. That's just in the works.
Tina and I probably tomorrow will start working on next month's agenda, and we are very accurate at coming up with times for everything. We will let presenters know very, very soon as to how much time you will have.
Okay, and then last question is, there's the planned deadline, the testimony before a public decision-making body for Saturday, November 19th. Personally, I just testified last week to another public decision-making body, so does that count, or do I have to testify closer to that date?
No, that's the date it's due. It's
Okay.
anything up to that point.
Okay.
Sooner the better, so that if you run into technological questions or problems or challenges, that we could resolve that, because often people wait till the last, and this is another one of these life lessons, transferable skill here. Please don't wait till the end, because things happen, and the ideal would be if you start creating a mindset that we give you till Saturday. It would be ideal if you commit yourself to doing it that Friday, so that if you have a tech problem during the day, that we can get on it while we have staff in the building.
Okay, thank you. And because it also says that we must submit a plan, so do I personally need to make a plan for how I
Yes.
testified? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it'll be a great reflection for you to do it in retrospect, how you planned for it. So I would suggest that you write the plan as though you were preparing to do what you've already done. What would you have put in place in order to deliver that testimony? This is a great teaching tool for you, learning in retrospect how you planned for it and what you might do differently the next time. Yes, please.
So I know we have 2 very similar mental health bills, and I was wondering if there was possibly any room or any action we could take to maybe put them together into one, because they are very similar, and I think there's good parts to both. Is that a possibility? Is it too late?
We've had this conversation in great depth. What we will likely do is we will determine after the 7 bills are heard, we'll work with legal to determine the possibility of making amendments at that point. Not at this point, but let's see what happens in the hearing on the 7. We're not going to be blending at this time. We want to give everybody an opportunity to testify full force on their own measure, and then we'll determine with legal what the possibility of amending language into a final bill, if indeed one of those mental health bills is a final bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, it's important that everybody has the opportunity to stand alone and carry their own measure as far as they can. Anybody else? I'd love to hear some feedback for what this experience felt like and what you learned from it and how you grew through it. This helps us enrich the program when we can hear back from you. Anyone in the north? And Mr. Chair, you'll have to call him because I can't see that well at this distance. Okay. Anybody?
Senator Wiener, I don't believe we have anyone from the north
Anyone in
requesting
the
to
south?
speak right now.
So what have you learned through this experience that you didn't know before you walked through the door? Please go ahead.
I think it just overall made me more aware of many issues going on in Nevada, and even if I was aware of them, sometimes I didn't know the severity of them, and that use of statistics really helped me understand.
Thank you. You also, I noticed more than ever before, because we're very tight on time so everybody can be heard, that you are learning by doing how to be very succinct and compress the most important idea. It's easy to talk on and on, but getting in 2 minutes is the challenge. So that's a great opportunity that you've had today to learn how to field your own points, to know what are the most important things that I want to impress upon my colleagues because I have 2 minutes. That's much more difficult. Just a sidebar, when I worked in Washington as Congressman and Senator Harry Reid's press secretary, I also wrote his 1-minute speeches for the floor. It's amazing what it takes to write a 1-minute speech to get it all in 1 minute, and you get the rhythm to it. Yeah, I learned how to be concise in that regard. Thank you. Yes?
I think this experience, it made me realize that once you put the voices of the youth together, there are many problems that can be uncovered. And if we just work together to solve these problems, then it's inevitable that they wouldn't be solved, that they would be solved, rather. And one of my key takeaways, especially for the questioning period, is to be short and succinct so that you don't run out of time and don't be too wordy. That's what I took away.
And may I piggyback that? When we learned in year 1 about message accountability and preparing, you might recall when I taught you the value and the advantage of writing as many questions that are relevant to what you're talking about. Write them out yourself as though someone else were asking them. So you take the point of view and perspective of the questioner. Write out whatever anybody could ask you about what it is you presented and then answer it. And you prepare in advance so that you don't walk away from the table and say, oh, I wish I'd thought of that, because you've already thought about it in advance. And based on my own experience, maybe 5% of the time I'm going to get a question, I have no idea where it came from. However, I don't find myself unsettled by that because I prepared for 95% of them. So I'm okay. Anyone else? And that takes us back to year 1, so just a refresher. Yes, please.
I was just going to ask if we're going to get a list of these 7 approved BDRs by the end of the day, or?
No, not by the end of the day. Tina's got to travel back north. But as soon as we possibly can, we will send out the 7 so that you can study them, and we'll also notify the presenters how much time you will have. And again, I would suggest prepare what questions your colleagues might ask and prepare the answers in advance. This will help you become, also this helps you to clarify your presentation in a bigger way, because those questions may steer you in a little different direction in your presentation. We have an open meeting law requirement, and just to be very careful and cautious about honoring the rules of the open meeting laws, please do not have discussions with your colleagues about these 7 bills, because that violates the open meeting law. It becomes a collective, accumulative issue of violating the open meeting law. So just to be clear, please don't have conversations with your colleagues about these 7 BDRs. And the same will apply going into the final 2. Please do not have conversations. Yes, Mr. Chair.
So aside from us not being able to discuss with our colleagues, are individual constituents able to contact youth legislators about the 7 BDR proposals and like send them an email or something? Would that be allowable?
Yeah, let's ask, yes, our legal counsel, whichever one wants to respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian. So the general contours of the open meeting law are that all deliberation or discussion regarding any matters that can come before the body are supposed to happen in an open meeting. So if there are emails concerning the measures that are going to come back before this body for a vote at its next meeting between individual youth legislators, that can create a serial communication where the body is a sufficient number of members of the body are discussing those matters outside of an open meeting. So it's best practice to not have even one-on-one contact, because if 10 of the members of the youth or 11 of the members of the youth legislature have one-on-one contact, then that's a quorum of the body that's now had communication outside of the public eye about the measure, and that would violate the open meeting law.
And Mr. Killian, the question from Chair Dimson was, does this incorporate also receiving information or feedback or inquiries from constituents within their district regarding any of the measures?
Thank you, Asher Killian, again for the record. So you are certainly welcome to receive information from people outside of the body. It's only discussion between, or any communication between members of the body that would be prohibited.
And again, I want to stress, thank you, Mr. Killian, what he mentioned is serial communication. It's that building up to the 11, however that number shows up. So let me give you a historical perspective. Early in the program, one of our youth legislators was unhappy with one of the BDRs. And so what he did on his own is he contacted, one at a time, his colleagues in the program, and eventually went into that serial, one at a time, serial communication violation of the open meeting law. So we just cannot get to that 11 in any form or fashion, which would violate the requirements of the state regarding open meetings. And please don't try to fudge it saying I only talked to 8 other people. Let's just play it very, very safe and be honorable about how we communicate about the measures. Yes, please.
I'm just curious, why does that exist?
The open meeting law? Mr. Killian.
Thank you, Asher Killian.
I'm laughing at this end too. Where do you start?
Yeah, I think probably the best answer to that question is that certainly there's a constitutional requirement that the legislature meet with open doors so that members of the public can see what the legislature is deliberating on. And in enacting the open meeting law, the legislature has decided that that should apply to all decisions made by all public bodies in the state. The idea is that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that everything discussed by everybody should be every public body should be open to the public, and the public should have access not only to the decisions that are made by the body, but also to the deliberation and the things that came into consideration while the bodies were making those choices, and that ultimately results in a better product and frees the system from even the hint of corruption.
Transparency, as Tina says, every step of the way. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? How does it feel to have accomplished this today? Nevada youth legislators, north and south, and rural. How does it feel? You feel a little bit taller? I always like feeling a little bit taller myself. We're all pleased. I'm speaking on behalf of many who put this event, this experience together. Thank you for your full engagement. And if you have questions, you know how to reach Tina through email. You can reach me through email. We respond very quickly. And Tina and I will visit, and we will get information out to you very soon about what the October meeting looks like so that those 7 semifinalists, BDRs, can prepare. And we will move forward and see you in October.
I have one comment.
please take the contents of your folders out of the folders and pass your folders to your left. Does that work in the north also? Looks like it does. We reuse these.
Thank you, Senator Wiener. Let me just arrange these documents. All right. So we'll now be moving to agenda item number 8. So I will now open this body to the second period of public comment. The same rules mentioned during the first period of public comment apply. Please try to keep your public comment to no more than 3 minutes. Please also try to avoid repeating testimony that has already made your point. So at this time, if anyone would like to provide public comment, please make yourself known. It does not appear that we have anyone who chooses to provide public comment at this time, both from the south and in the north. So we'll now move on to agenda item number 9. We are now ready to adjourn. Do any youth legislators have any final thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns before we adjourn this meeting? And then if we could just switch this. Thank you. All right. Well, it does not look like any youth legislators would like to make any comments at this time. So this concludes the Nevada Youth Legislature's business for today. This meeting is now adjourned.